Welcome to Resist with Joy podcast, where we amplify the voices of everyday people and empower our listeners to engage, show up, and become the policy shapers of tomorrow. I'm Tina Marie.
I'm Martina. Welcome to another episode where we usually dive into the news of the week, but it's always about the past. We're actually looking into the future about next weekend's event where Tina Marie will be running for party chair for the Democratic Party of Hawaii. And we thought we can dedicate a whole session or a whole episode. So I asked her a few questions and where she stands, and we can distribute that before the actual election next Saturday. It's going to be in Honolulu at the convention.
Waikiki. Yeah.
It's in Hawaii, in Waikiki at the Hilton Hotel. And I will be there too. I have my experience now too with the Democratic Party. I got into it because of Tina Marie, and there's a whole connection here. But we are both dedicated to be grassroots and bringing more Jews into this party and seeing where everything falls in place. So are you ready for a few questions, Tina Marie?
Lay it on me.
The Democratic Party is always described as a big tent party. And I'm in this for 5-6 years, learning how everything works with government and the history of America. But when I think of the parties, my impression of the Republican Party, and it's proven now it's a fascistic movement. It's not a party. In a normal sense, it works for the people. And then the rest of it in a two-party system is the Democratic Party that is then left over. And the word that is flowing around is called, it's a big tent. So that's actually a question to you. How can you, as a chair, you're the leader of the big ship, unify the progressives, the moderates, maybe the more conservatives who would never vote for Republican because it's just so a stained entity now. Let us know. What do you think about the unification of these different groups within a party?
Yeah, I'm learning firsthand that not all Democrats share the same unifying message of inclusion and fairness and what have you. Everybody seems to have their own version of what it means to be a Democrat in mind. And one of the things that I have not yet seen from any Democratic Party of any state is getting a pulse on where their voters, where their delegation is laying at, how many are progressives, how many are moderates, how many are actually closeted Republicans, how many are just here and part of the Democratic Party because they're anti-MAGA and they're anti the cruelty that MAGA produces. So I feel like that we need to get a good pulse on how many of each factions are in the Democratic Party. And I would love to produce a survey first to get some idea on those numbers and to see where we can figure out how to unite. I know there are some common values that we all work towards, like we're all wanting to, make sure Democrats get elected. And for whatever reason that is, there's also some people that are Democrats because we are a heavy Democratic state, and that's the only way they can win elections. So they're more on the conservative side. We call them Democrats in name only. So there's a term for that, DINO. But yeah, and there are some progressives here. What I've been finding too is that MAGA has done a really, really great job of infiltrating the Republican Party. What I'm finding out within
the Democratic Party, infiltrating the Democratic Party.
No, hang on, I'm getting there. MAGA has done a good job of infiltrating the Republican Party. So they've done the work, they've organized, and they've taken over the Republican Party.
I see.
And within the Democratic Party, there is a lot of conservatives also who are not Republican, but kind of Republican. And they also have been organizing. They've been working together. They've been doing the work and showing up and infiltrating the Democratic Party. And what I'm not seeing is a lot of progressives willing to do the work. And one of the things that I really want to emphasize is that if we want to change the party and we really want our politicians to be better, we have to show up and do the work. I, as a progressive, understand the strategic value of doing that, which is why I've been recruiting people to join the Democratic Party and join me in making it and pushing it more left. But we have to be willing to do the work. And that is one thing I cannot emphasize enough. But before we can even unite, we have to understand where all of our values are, figure out what we can unite on, and then we can go from there and have those conversations.
Yeah, for the folks that hear all the words progressive, conservative, moderate, radical right, That's actually, I believe, also knowledge that is not really known for most people. But I did understand, and also when I come from Germany, and we have more parties, but I always knew that, for example, the Green Party was all about the environment, right? So we had that, I had that knowledge just as a voter. I knew that they are for the environment. That's the first grade. But I also understand now, and over the years even more, when you think of a line, you would say the left and the right, and then maybe there's a center. And for the longest time, I believe the Democratic Party was center left and Republicans were center right. And then I got the name on the center right, they were conservatives. And so as long as I'm in this trying to understand the world, literally, how this is all happening here in America, that's that it's not a center right party anymore. It's an extreme right party. And then when politicians are trying to get into power, and they go even further to the right and are more extreme than already extreme people. So that's why we see so many wild, crazy people in this political environment at the moment. To be said, on the left, it's Democratic Party is center left. And I guess all those folks that you just mentioned, progressive and moderates and conservatives, they're all on the left, but we're not radical. I mean, that is a big problem that someone said, well, you're progressive, you're radical. No. Actually, for me as a German, a progressive is center, because in Germany, it is normal for what progressives are asking for is like, give me like health insurance or help me as government do the work you're supposed to do, right?
Yeah,
And
take care of
I
your people. Use
take
our
care of
tax
your
dollars to
people.
take care of the people.
Yeah, yeah. But that's really something that, I mean, I'm educated about all this, where people can sit, but the word conservative, to throw out conservatives, I guess in the Democratic Party, it makes a lot more sense that there be conservatives. But my question is also, what are they conserving, right?
Exactly. They're
And
conserving the status quo from what I understand. They
yeah,
just wanna keep power. I
yeah,
I've been talking with a lot of the people that are going to the convention and a lot of the delegates, so I'm trying to, like, put myself out there and introduce myself. And in a lot of these conversations that I'm having, I'm hearing that they just really don't care that much about democracy. They really don't care about inclusivity. They care more about power. And I think that the conservatives, quote unquote conservatives within the Democratic Party, are more there for power than anything else. And I'm actually here for democracy. So it's a little disheartening, but that's kind of where we're at right now. And that's what I want to highlight.
that's the work we have to do, right? I mean, I came in, you motivated me, and I said, I'm an independent and I wanted to stay that way. But if you really look behind the curtain of any party, how people come together, the committees and the caucuses and everything, there are people sitting there, right? And they all have their ideas. And so many people have to come to agreements. It's quite a process, and I
It
guess
is.
that's democracy at work. But you're right, there are levels of power, and if you know the inner workings really well, you can leverage a lot of things. And that's why the progressives have to do more work. I'm not a progressive. I'm coming from Germany, where it's center to have everything that the progressives asked for. So I'm actually a centrist, and let people do what they want to do, and just be in the confine of be humanity, and for me also environmentally first is always the first thing. It's like, how can we look through the lens of humanity and environmentally sustainable practices? Yeah.
And it's funny that you say that you're a centrist because to our listeners, centrist means that you're catering to Republicans. But I know that what you're saying is that in Germany, progressives are are
Yes,
centrist.
it's normal
Yeah,
for us. It's the center that you are taken care of by the government, and that is such a foreign concept for, let's say, for America. But I also think because marketing and putting labels on things is so well established here in America, that for me, a conservative, if someone says I'm a conservative, I really have to ask, what does that mean to you, for you,
exactly.
right? Are you a radical right? Just taking it as a cover, it's like, I'm a Republican, I'm a conservative. No, or are you a radical right? Because if you have an R behind you right now, I have a hard time with you. It doesn't make sense to me how you can attach yourself to this kind of party leader. Yeah. So yeah, it's an
For sure.
interesting.
That leads me to another conversation that I had that I want to talk about real quick is that in talking with some people, they have told me flat out that they're only there because they've been recruited to vote for their guy.
Really?
So, yeah. So, a couple people have flat out told me that they have been recruited to vote for my opponent. And what that basically tells me is that they're going to show up, they're going to vote for my opponent, and we're never going to see or hear from them ever again for at least the next couple of years until they want to get somebody else in. It is disheartening. That tells me that they're not really there. They don't care about democracy. They don't care about the future of the Democratic Party. They don't care about bringing voices together or outreach or anything. They just want power, and that's it.
Yeah, that would be the folks that know the leverage within a system.
Yep.
Bylaws have rules, the rule book, and how do you best maneuver things around to get the outcome you want. And
And
what I
and to be
think,
fair,
hmm?
I'm recruiting people too, but the people I'm recruiting care about democracy. They're not
I was
coming there
just about
just
to
for
say
me.
that. I was just about to say that you should do the same thing. And that brings me back to, I'm not sure if you talked about it last week. I talked to someone else the other day. Bring a ruthlessness to the process. We can be ruthless with aloha because we want to have a future where aloha is really represented in humanity and have an inclusivity for everybody. All right. I'm going to dive into this ruthless with aloha question mark. How do you do that in another episode? But it's something that Kamala Harris mentioned a couple weeks ago on a podcast. We have to do the same strategies that the other folks are,
I've
well,
been saying that for
employing.
the last 10 years. I'm so
That's right.
glad they're catching up.
Yeah, and that should be for you running for this particular chair in this moment. Yeah, yeah. My impression is you're trying to be really nice and fair, but what you just said, it's unfair. It's already an
Mhm.
unfair practice. Or maybe not because you're doing it too, but it's maybe the rules of the game. Game as in trying to get to the chair, being voted on. So super interesting details on that. All right. So another question I had is fundraising. I listened to the forum on Tuesday. It came up. And how do you fundraise well in these times? Because you're supposed to give money to everybody who lives on the mainland and is doing things and running for office, and you can make a difference there. But of course, the Democratic Party needs to have money too to be organized and run. How's that work for you? What's your plan?
So I used to come from the standpoint of I was always annoyed at getting fundraising emails. And I always looked at that and was like, oh, why are you just asking for money? You're not actually doing anything. You're not doing the work. And why should I give you money? And that's kind of my stance is that if people don't understand what the Democratic Party stands for, what it is that they do, why do they function the way they do, people are not going to be willing to donate. And I just read an article this morning and I didn't read the full thing, but I read some snippets of it is saying that the DNC is actually in debt right now because they've lost a lot of fundraising since they lost the election. And the whole hiding the autopsy report and then releasing it that it's not fulfilled. I mean, that's just not looking good for the Democratic Party as a whole. So my thing is that currently in the Hawaiian Democratic Party database, there's like 100,000 people that are registered with the state party. There's a lot
100,000.
more. Yeah, there's 100,000 that are registered with the party. Does not mean we have only 100,000 voters. We have a lot more voters to tap into. But these are people that went to the Democratic Party of Hawaii's website and registered with the party. Now, whether or not that database is updated or not, I have no idea. But I think it would be a good idea to tap into at least 10% of those. If just 10% can give $10 a month, that's going to generate $1 million a year for the Democratic Party of Hawaii. But I also know that I'm not going to give money unless I know why and what it's going to be used for. Some of the things that I've learned about what that money is used for is we have a headquarters in Hawaii, we have staff, we have a website, we have a marketing database, we have utilities to pay for. We also use some of that money to help fund travel for the representatives that go to DNC meetings, which are apparently held in person from what I'm understanding. And there's 4 of us. There's the chair, the vice chair, and then the 2 national committee members that are part of the DNC voting base. So you have to pay for their travel to go to those DNC meetings quarterly. And then there's other things for helping candidates win elections. Now, the party cannot endorse or provide money to people who are running in primaries, but after they win their primary, that's when they start tapping into those funds.
Mhm.
Also, holding conventions like we are in Honolulu next week, that costs money. So if we're going to be trying to fly in people to try to raise money, that costs money too. There's a lot of structural things that need to be paid for that require a lot of money. And if people understand what that money is going for, I feel like more people will be more willing to donate. I also think, on the other hand, that if we keep communicating within ourselves, we're all eventually going to die out. And then so will that money. So we have to increase our outreach. We have to increase getting more energized. We have to actively recruit people to run for office, give them the tools that they need to run for office to have a successful campaign, and promote a platform that is not just anti-Trump. We absolutely need to be pushing a platform that people are going to be excited to vote for.
Mhm.
And when you get people to be excited about something, naturally the money is going to flow and they're going to open up their wallets.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that is where I'm looking at as far as strategy and fundraising. And then the third thing is I'm going to be heavily relying on people that are smarter than me, that have done fundraising in the past. And I'm going to be tapping into those resources as well.
You said something at the very beginning, so thank you for all that. I think it's a good plan, but 100,000 people on subscribe, it's a list, right? It's a subscriber list. There's software that stands behind it. And the question is, how do you get those 10%? I want you to tell us a little bit more how much you've actually been involved from a technical side of this, because I do email marketing for 10 years now, but I'm not selling something. I'm talking about manta rays and marine life and ocean. And I have a really good list, and I have a very engaged list. They love to hear from what I have to say about the ocean, right? And I provide a lot of value to people through emails. So I have actually quite a lot of experience how to get to those 10%. You say if 100,000 people get an email, you can really say maybe 30% are going to open it, right? It's called open rates. So that's what I mean
Yes.
about technical aspect here. And then you maybe look at those 30% that open they see, oh, they probably roll their eyes. 15% of those roll their eyes and say, oh, an email from the Democratic Party asking for money, right? But then maybe you still have 15%. And then the trick is to get money out of them, right? I think the plan is really solid to do that. But I want you to tell us, do you have the technical expertise or the ideas or the smarter people in the room to get you to that place? Because I would be in that room to help you, by the way,
I
because I'm
certainly
doing
hope
this right now.
so.
So tell me.
I certainly hope so. I hope that the people who are smarter than me are going to stick around and be my counsel, because I'm going to need them. I'm going to need to tap into them. As far as technical skills, you've worked with me for a while and you know I have technical skills. I actually used to work in email marketing, and part of my job.
Hold it. Repeat that. You worked in email marketing for a company that this specialty is email marketing. So
Yes.
if you look at the other candidate and he's like, oh, I'm going to communicate with other people, ask him the same question. What is your technical skill? And keep going, but you
Yes.
definitely have it. So continue.
And
Show
and
us.
for those that don't understand what email marketing is sending mass emails to your base that people subscribe to. So anytime you get like one of those coupons in the email saying 10% off, today only, that's email marketing. That is considered email marketing. So whenever you send a mass email to a group of people, that is email marketing. So we do have people signed up to the database, and I need to figure out the ins and outs of how that database works, because every single email marketing system is functioning a little bit different and you can see different things depending on what the program is. The database that we have is actually provided to us by the DNC. So it is something that is more universally used through every single state from what I'm understanding. And I know a couple people that have taken a look at that database, and they said that they cannot see the open rate. They cannot see like the click rate or anything like that, which are functions that you normally see on the back end of an email marketing system. Now, when I worked in email marketing, I was working customer service, teaching people how to use the system that we provided. And that included setting up a contact form, setting up how to filter people into different lists, how to use the drag and drop system to add things like text and videos and
Mhm.
pictures and links and things like that, and then how to send those out to different people. And more importantly, how to actually check to see how many people are actually opening it. Because then there's different strategies of how to formulate your subject line or how to formulate your different preview text in order to entice more open rates. So I have the basic understanding of how that line of communication works. Outside of that, I feel like it would be a really great idea if the Democratic Party of Hawaii has a separate page called newsletters, so that if the system is failing and not actually reaching people, there's at least a centralized location where people can get that information. And I think that is super important. We also need to be more active on social media about what it is that we're sending out in email so people can see it there too. Just have different lines of communication, which I think is very helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, to me, this is like, let's live in 2026 on a communication strategy, right? And I think, I don't know anything about the other candidate, but I would worry if you think of like, we have to be better. The only thing you really have to do to be is better communication, because it shows transparency. I mean, you cannot lie in your communication. Just be honest. That's where
Hmm.
we are. That's where we want to go. And if you don't even have the channels to do that, you stay in your little box, and everybody thinks the Democratic Party, in this case then Hawaii, is a non-functioning entity, even if we call it a blue state. But I think there's also this disconnect that most people don't understand. The Democratic Party's main goal is to bring people into office, right? And then when the people are in office, they may be coming from the Democratic Party or the Republican Party being put it there. So it's a D and a R behind it. But it doesn't mean that they're also aligned necessarily with what the
Hmm.
Democratic Party says as the goals. And maybe they have different goals. They just use that vehicle to get into office. So there's a whole thing that you have to deconstruct for people, how the system works, and I think, think of it, if you would come up with a communication channel or communication topic and say, what are the bylaws of the
Hmm.
Democratic Party? Why are we doing it with this? And you can bring older people saying, why, that's how we do it. You can bring a lawyer in and say, hey, we have to have bylaws. It's the rule book we run by. And so bring it from the legal side and shine some light on. You could do a podcast, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Gavin
But
Newsom has a podcast and he's a governor.
that's right. And you will be the chair. That's what we're working for. And you have a podcast. I think if people realize that we have a podcast and we're talking about this and how we can bring other guests on and expand just communications. I mean, the black box is not working, obviously, right? And what happened, and that is really top of the news, the DNC put out this autopsy report. I mean, what a sad state it is in, right? But at the same time, a day later, I read also that the grassroots is making real progress within
Yes.
the state parties, because we're all seeing, we know the Democratic Party it's the only vehicle to stay in a democratic governed country. And we can clean this up and we can help to get to a better place. And for me personally, communication is the biggest part, because people are open to it when you talk truth to and talk openly and try to be accountable. That's what's lacking all the.
And education. We need to educate people on understanding the process. And when they understand the process, they'll be more inclined to actually do the work and show up and go from showing up to shaping policy.
Next question I had is, a question was directed to you, how you can make legislator do what the base from the Democratic Party wants, right?
Yeah.
Can you clarify what you actually have the ability to do, where your power sits, and how you can get things in place or not?
Yeah. So that was a very interesting question to me because I am of the mindset that no individual person can truly make another person do anything. I mean, they could if they want to resort to blackmail and shady politics and trying to dig up dirt on somebody and using that as leverage. But I'm not going to do that because I don't feel good in my body if I try to manipulate somebody in that nature. So that is never going to be me, first and foremost. But also, when I was receiving that question, I had a funny thought in my head. I was like, does the chair have access to a spell book where I could put spells on people? Do I have the ability to make legislators do anything? And the
Okay.
answer is no, because they're people. They have their people and they have their positions in their campaign. They also have an entire community of voters that they have to answer to. And that's kind of what I alluded to. It's like we can't really make them do anything. What the Democratic Party does is it creates resolutions, which are statements and structures of how we want to proceed with any kind of legislation. We also have a platform that we come together and build together. Like people within the committees actually build out the platform that you see on the website. And the hope and goal is that once we have that in place, we have that document structure, then anyone who runs as a Democrat is going to agree to it. And when they receive bills in their House legislator, they're going to find those bills and oppose or agree and vote in favor of certain bills that are fall in line with our platform. Now, from what I'm understanding, is there are some legislators that have received a bills package from some of our caucuses and they never even bothered to open them up or put them into committee or even bring them to a floor to vote. And the question was like, how are you going to make the legislators do that? Short answer is I can't. I don't have the power to make them do anything. But we as a collective body can put pressure on them to entice them and encourage them to do what we want them to do. But that is not something that the chair alone has the authority to do. That is something the governing body of the entire party collectively has the power to do. And when we show up in numbers, we can encourage them to do what we want.
Now, my head goes directly to what we talked about before. How do you make sure someone knows we're watching, right? That's what you're saying. If many people watch, you can put pressure, just, not physical pressure, just pressure on someone. But how do you do that? To get more people, communicate better to people what's at stake, why a caucus package is important. How do you transparently make the argument for a package that a caucus suggests, and how the legislator should open the package. That's how I understand it. That's the disconnect, right?
Yeah.
So there should be pressure. And how you do that? Well, better communication, right?
Exactly.
You
It
could
all
say,
goes down to communication.
that's right. You can go back to a newsletter and say, this is the reasons why the caucus did this. These are the arguments. And you could say, hey, you can also watch this on the podcast, and where the arguments flow back and forth. So you can actually transparently see who stands for it and what caucus is it and why they're doing it. And then you would ask the legislator, well, if you cannot open the package itself, why don't you watch the podcast? You can do it on your way to work, or you can read the newsletter while you may be doing something else, and so it is the forms of how to get this to a communication channels and make sure that the legislator actually gets the message, which he should, or she should, but I guess that's not the reality today. We always want to stay in reality. That's not happening right now. And that's what you can do as a better communicator. I truly believe then whoever the other person is, we haven't even talked about him. It is a him, right? It's a man. And use these skills that you have to bring even more transparency and communication to the Democratic Party of Hawaii.
And also, too, like I was part of my journalism class in high school. So got drilled into me to figure out whenever I'm reporting on something, who, what, when, where, why, and how. And anytime somebody says, this didn't work, they didn't want to do something, they didn't want to do this, my question is always why? What happened? What are they hearing? How do they come to that conclusion? And I'm just going through the who, what, when, where, why, how. Like, I want that information so I know how to proceed. So if I am chair and I hear that caucus bills are not being heard, I'm going to go to the legislator and figure out why. What's going on? Who's opposing it? Is there language in the bill that needs to be adjusted? Can we figure out how to move this forward? What are you scared of? And I'm going to get down to those questions. Like, that's the only thing I can do is just open up that line of communication between the caucus and the legislator and figure out how to proceed. What do we need to do to compromise and make this move forward? So opening up the line of communication is probably the only thing I possibly can do. And gathering people and encouraging people to call their offices and say, hey, we want this pushed forward.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you're that link, right, in between to get that going. And if you already have communication skills, you're showing them off right now, sitting here, not showing off, but we're using them, right? That's how you communicate. You can make it conversational on a recording like this. And the beauty of a podcast in this case is we have an editor behind it. Thank you, Savannah.
Love you.
She can take certain clips out of this recording and put it on social media. So the conversation is then you can go further from the short clip into the full conversation. So that's what we want to encourage everybody to do with this. If you find it on social media or maybe in the newsletter that Tina Marie has established for herself as a candidate to get to the folks, to get to know her a little bit. So it's cool. All right, Tina Marie, is there something else that we haven't covered? I mean, there's lots of stuff we haven't covered, but is there anything specific you would like to mention again or talk about?
Well, I did receive one endorsement this week from the Stonewall Caucus, so I'm really excited about that. The Women's Caucus actually worked together with the Stonewall Caucus to put together a pledge to protect.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a bunch of different statements on saying that you agree to support women's rights, you agree to support the LGBTQIA community and things like that. So this pledge was given out to both candidates that are running for chair, myself and my opponent. I'm the only one that signed it.
Uh-huh.
According to them, my opponent was very against the trans inclusivity portion of that pledge. And they started to resort to MAGA talking points, such as men and women's sports and things like that. And there is so much rhetoric that goes around that that's misinformation and dangers of that, which I don't think are a danger at all, especially knowing what I know. And we can include some of that information in the show notes if you want. But at the same time, I will always be in favor of being inclusive versus exclusive. And if I lose my race because of this one issue, then I'll be okay with that because at least I stuck with my integrity. I feel like every single minority group is under attack from this administration. We are undergoing fascism, and this is a very minute point, a very thing that I don't think anybody should be getting up in arms about as their baseline. And what I'm also finding too is there are members in the party that are of the voting base that are also sticking to these talking points. And I think that it is very disheartening to hear coming from within the base. It's if I didn't know any better, I would think I was talking to a MAGA. So they're definitely doing a good job of infiltrating. And I think that progressives can do an even better job of taking back the party. And that is what I am here to do. I am here to be inclusive, unwaveringly. I am here to support all the groups, and I am here to help stop fascism. And I think that is the number one priority for me.
That's a good roundup of this episode. We hope that the viewer, the listeners, folks that go next week to the convention have a chance to listen to all that Tina Marie is sharing with us today. I'm really glad you're my co-host and hopefully stay my co-host because we're just getting started. We know where the communication pitfalls are. I mean, I think we figured out a lot of things already technically and branding wise and having resist with joy from showing up to shaping policies. I mean, it is the moment that we live in. We have to resist. We don't want to lose our joy and we will not give it to them, to anyone who wants to. Well, we have fascism here already, but wants to overthrow the system of government we have. And I want to live in a democratic system of government. As messy as it is, that's what this really clearly discussed today. It's a messy process, but I ain't want to work on a place where one religion rules on white man rule, and no thank you. The nicest way I can say that. So we will keep fighting for a better future. I think we're on a really good track to do that. There's so many other things Tina Marie and I do for other organizations, and we're all on the same path. Create a future that is different than what has happened as a system over the last 80 years, where just the richer get richer and the poor stay poor and the middle class gets destroyed. We have the power to change things. So
yes,
thank you for coming. And well, Tina Marie is here anyway, but it's not like I invited her. Any last words from you for today?
Last words are we need to get involved and we need to show up and we need to go from showing up to shaping policy.
Great ending. So we're going to give everybody a heart. And we hope that as many people that go to the convention and have voting power will read this or listen to this or have a chance to get to know Tina Marie a little bit better. I think she's the candidate for the future because she represents so many things that I stand behind. So thanks for listening. Like us, subscribe. We'll be back next week and talk to you later. Aloha.
Aloha.